When you're creating a database, you can start from a blank Access database, which we'll take a look at in a moment, or you can utilize templates. There's quite a few Microsoft Office Access database templates. If you have never done this before, I always recommend starting with a template, and even if you don't ultimately utilize the template, it gives you some really good ideas. And there's quite a few templates that probably pertain to the type of database you're creating. So it would at least make sense in that research phase to think about looking at and starting with one of those templates to see ways that you might create interactivity or the types of forms or even how you might organize and set up your tables. In Microsoft Access, when you click on File, New, you're going to see this list of choices. So just to go back, remember that's your backstage where you choose File, and then you go to New. So here's the blank database. We will take a look at that one first, but then also notice that you can search in all these online templates. So let's first take a look at a blank database. We're just going to name this blank. It's going to go to that default location that we took a look at earlier, but you can change that to be saved anywhere. And then you're going to choose Create. Now, a blank database is just like it sounds. There's going to be nothing in it. No tables, no queries, no forms, no reports. You're starting completely from scratch. You'll notice it's going to open up a blank table where you can start adding information. I'm just going to close that blank table to have you notice that we have all objects visible by object type. There's nothing in here whatsoever. So you would start from the tables and you would build your way out by creating tables, queries, forms, reports, and whatever else was necessary. I'm going to go back to that same menu, File and New. And this time, I'm going to search in the online templates. Now, notice there are some suggested searches or categories. So if we were to click Business, you'll see that these are all in that business category. So even if you didn't search for something or you didn't know what to search for, you can click on these different suggestions. There's a time card, a personal contact manager, time and billing, vehicle maintenance, Northwind, which is just Microsoft's sample database is that Northwind. That's the one that I'm working in. So if you wanted to do some of the same things or follow along or try to work with some of that same data, it gives you a good sample set of data. Issue tracking, bug tracking, desktop business accounts, marketing projects, faculty. I'm just going to click on task management so you can get a feel for what this process is like. It's going to give you an overview. You can name it. We'll call it task template just so we know to delete it later. I'm going to choose create. It's going to build it out. So when we choose a template, there's going to be some objects in there. Each template's going to be different. So some might have 10 tables, some might have 1 table. Some of them might not have very many reports. Some of them might have a lot. So here you can see there's 4 tables, about 6 queries, maybe 6 or 8 forms, 6 or 8 reports, a couple macros, and so on. So that's all part of the template. I'm just going to open up the tables so that you get a feel. So they're set up, but there's no data in them. So they're ready to be populated for you. Filters table, again, they're set up, no data. Same with settings. Same with tasks. So all of that you're able to fill with your own information, but the infrastructure and some of those preset queries, forms, and so on are set up for you. You can still customize them, and you're going to learn a lot of the things in this course for how you might customize them. So I would actually argue that it's probably faster to pick a template that's maybe 80% close to what you're creating and then do some customizing. Make some tweaks, some changes, eliminate some fields, add some fields, maybe create new forms or modify existing ones, but you can still make a lot of changes based on it, and it might be easier and take less time than creating something completely from scratch. We'll take a look at one other template just to give you a feel. We'll go to a personal category, and let's do the personal contact manager. Contacts template, we'll call that. Again, bringing up a form that has a list of contacts where we can start to populate. If I open up that navigation pane, this one has its own menu. So again, a little bit different. We can always toggle back to our object types. Not too much information in here. Again, with a contact list, not necessarily a need for that, but 2 tables, 1 query, 3 forms, and 4 reports. And of course, you could just put in some dummy information. So if I want to put my name in here and add a little bit of info, I might take a look at some of these forms and just see what they look like. So what a contact call log would look like, what the contact list might look like. Once I leave that record, we'll learn more about this in tables, but that's when it saves. So now if I go into my contact details, here's my information. This is how it might look. And then I can get a feel for how that might work. I don't have any calls in there, but I could look at my contact address book. I could look at my phone list and just kind of see what that looks like. And again, it might be just for ideas, or you might choose to start with this and then build it out and add more functionality and more objects. We'll take a look at one more. We're going to go to industry. So there's customer service, there's inventory, a lending library, time and billing, real estate. Take a look at an inventory. I'm going to open up that navigation pane. Again, this one has a custom menu. So just to get a feel for how many objects, I like to do it by object type so I can see how many tables there are. Helps me think a little bit about how built out this is. Quite a few forms, quite a few reports. Again, it's going to be empty, so I can open up the tables to get a feel for how many fields there are. I can look at the forms. There's not going to be any data, but I can take a look at the forms just to kind of see what they look like. Again, knowing that I can go into the design view of any of these and make changes. So when it comes to that first step of creating a database, keep in mind what you're doing is creating the shell. Even if you're doing just a brand new blank database, you're creating the shell. And if you're using a template, you're still creating the shell, but that shell is going to have some objects in it, and you can build that out. So here in my recent, when I go into my home area, like I'm going to open a new database, here are these ACCDB files that I've created. And again, it's just that single file, and it contains all those different objects in it. While we're in this screen, I'll just also mention that if there are certain databases that you use on a regular basis, you can use this pin feature. So if you hover next to the database, so the one that we're working in is called training, we can hover next to it, hit that little pin, and notice what happens is it actually gets pinned up to the top. And there's actually a different area here called pinned, where everything that I've pinned is going to show up. The benefit of this, think of a bulletin board or a wall that you have sticky notes on. It's like sticking it up there, so no matter how much time goes by, you can easily find it. So if you open 100 different databases, if it's pinned, it's always going to show up in there. It's never going to fall off your recent category. These other ones are going to fall off as I open other ones up. So this is a great feature. This is another one of those features that's actually going to be applicable for all of your Microsoft Office applications. You can do the same thing in Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. So when you go to open, you might have files and folders in here. Notice this pinned one's showing up at the top here. So I've got pinned, but it also shows up under home. So I've got recent and I've got pinned. So the pinned will show up at the top of my recent, but also under its own category under pinned. If you want to unpin it, you just hover and click the pin again, takes it off of the pinned, and now it's still part of my recent, and I can toggle it back on by clicking pin.